Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's meeting of Wormwood Charitable Trust. My name is Councillor Alex Anderson, and I am chairing this evening's meeting. As ever, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Please could you remain on mute unless you are speaking. Please wait until I call on you before speaking, and can everybody introduce themselves when they first address the committee. And if you are speaking, could you please try and have your camera on? Okay, item number 1, apologies for absence. We have received apologies from Councillor Donovan. I think that's it though. So unless there's anything else to add there, I'll take us on to item number 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest? I don't. Councillor Rowbottom, I don't think you do. Fine, no. Moving on. Minutes of the previous meeting. Do members approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of December 2022? Are there any issues or matters arising? Good. Looks like, oh, Stephen, was that a hand up or was that an approval?
It was an approval, but also a hand up for matters arising from it.
Okay.
We were going to get further clarification on the rental income for the Pony Centre and the single-storey parks depot, and that's not in the papers for this meeting, and I didn't want it to be forgotten.
I know that officers are working on that, so it might just taking a bit longer, but fair point. Thank you. Are there any other, Miriam?
Another issue in the minutes was the question of the hospital car park lease and when that's due for renewal and when negotiations should commence.
I am not sure on that. Steve, do you know? Steve Williams has got his hand up.
Yes, Steve Hollingworth, Director Leisure, Sport and Culture and Advisor to the Trust. If I can take the car park one first, I've looked at the agreement, and it's just ongoing with 3 months' notice either side by either party. So there's no sort of guarantees for us or the hospital on the current agreement. It started from the original date. So we can go back to the hospital and say we want a more fixed term arrangement, or we can continue with the original agreement.
Does it have an inflation escalator in it?
Yes, it does. It does, yes.
Which presumably is relative to CPI.
It is, yes. I believe it is CPI, yes.
Thank you.
Fine. Any other questions arising, Stephen?
And I'm sorry, also from a previous meeting, the Thames Valley Harriers clubhouse was discussed probably 2 meetings ago, and we don't want that to fall out of our purview. I believe that they are continuing to move forward on it, and I wondered if they were continuing to discuss it with officers.
Steve?
Yes, on the Thames Valley Harriers, they are continuing to review their plans. I'm glad you asked that question because they've indicated to me they would like to invite trustees down to the clubhouse to discuss their proposals with you and show you their plans before the next meeting. So if people are happy with that on the call, I can organise that.
That sounds like that would be welcome.
Great. And the second point, if I can just go back, Chair, on the Pony Centre, I can confirm that Chris has confirmed through our finance department that we will be backdating all income from 2016 and crediting the trust.
Okay, thank you.
So the outstanding one is the depot, and I will come back on that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are those minutes approved? Lovely, great. Thank you very much. All right. Item 4, Manager's Report. Can I ask Steve Hollingworth to introduce this item? And are we going to the presentation first?
Yes, Chair, I'll introduce it, and we have members of the London Development Trust with us who will do a presentation. So the background to this is we have gone out to tender to get additional consultation on the master plan. I'm pleased to say we have awarded the contract to London Development Trust, who are very experienced in community engagement, including projects concerned with the natural environment. So there are 3 members of LDT on the call, and so I'm going to hand over to Miriam Burke to present the consultation strategy. Before I do, I just say that the commission has 4 stages. So the first part is this consultation strategy, and obviously they're going to implement that and then report back to us, and the final report will then be delivered to us at the end. So that's the sort of 4 stages. So if Miriam Burke is on the call from LDT, as she is, I know she is, I can see her, I'll hand over to you, Miriam. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steve, and thank you so much, Simon, Miriam, Jinga, for being here. It's really nice to see you.
Great, thank you ever so much, and yeah, thanks for having us all. Before I do the presentation, and we've still got everybody's videos on, I just thought it might be nice to do introductions now, so that you know who we are when we're talking through it. So I'm Miriam Burke, and I will be speaking through this presentation. I'm going to hand over to Shingi as our impact manager.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Shingai Chirumuta, and I'm the Impact and Evaluation Manager for the London Development Trust.
Evening, everybody. My name's Simon Donovan, and I'm the Chief Executive for London Development Trust.
Thank you. I've got a half asleep toddler in my arms because he's quite ill with COVID. So if you hear any grumbling, that's where it is. Hopefully he'll stay asleep, but just in case, just to warn you.
We don't need at all if he wakes up. Do you want to do introductions from the rest of the committee? Have you already done that?
That'd be nice, yeah.
Lovely. So you've met me, but Helen, Miriam and Stephen, would you just like to say who you are and then any officers on the call?
Sure thing. Evening,
I
everyone.
apologise for not following your instructions. I'm Stephen Whaley-Cohen, co-opted member of the committee, chairman of the trustees of Friends of the Scrubs, a large number of people who care about the Scrubs, and we're a charity which tries to get this committee to do an even better job than it's trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rowbottom?
Evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Helen Rowbottom, councillor here in Hammersmith and Fulham, and a member of the Trust.
Miriam?
Miriam Shea, Friends of the Scrubs. I am also a trustee of the Friends of the Scrubs and a co-opted member of this committee.
Thank you. You've met Steve, of course. I'm just trying to run through the names of who you haven't met yet. Neil, I can see you on the call. Would you like to say hello as well?
Yep, hello, my name's Neil Morrison. I work for the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham Council in the Environment Department, and I'm one of the seniors for the North Team Law Enforcement Team.
Thank you. Carmen?
Yes, hello, my name is Carmen Lamoti. I provide finance support to the Trust.
Hi, Carmen, thank you. And then is there anyone else who I am not picking up on? I think that's everyone, but forgive me if it's not. And please do jump in now. Lovely. All right, thank you. I think that's everyone. So Miriam, please do take it away.
Thank you. Okay. Can everybody see my screen okay? Lovely.
Yes.
So, so this presentation outlines what we are aiming to do with this consultation. Ooh, apologies. So about this commission, so London Development Trust has been commissioned by the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham to conduct a community consultation and engagement strategy for Wormwood Scrubs. So this builds on the previous consultation, which took place before the pandemic. So we want to underline that the previous commission is really important, and it will form a lot of the framework for much of this work. And we don't intend to redo any of the work already done, but rather we want to address some key gaps and increase the depths of understanding in relation to the changing use of the green space, especially during and following the COVID-19 lockdowns. So the idea is that the consultation will develop an overall vision for Wormwood Scrubs and inform the design of a biodiversity master plan for the open space. So how we're going to do that is what we will outline in this presentation. Introduction to London Development Trust. So London Development Trust, or LDT, we are a community development charity, and our aim is to create places where people live happily. So we create delivery plans emerging from existing community stewardship and community asset management, including green and blue spaces. LDT manages spaces and delivers services on the ground in Acton Gardens in Ealing, Woodbury Down, Hackney, Grand Union in Brent, and Finsbury Park in Islington. So I jumped the gun on my slides, I'm afraid. So we do community stewardship, we manage spaces, and we do data-driven research. So we believe in the value of data, and relying on empirical, qualitative and quantitative research underpins everything that we do. So our team. So I am Dr. Miriam Burke. I'm director at London Development Trust. I have a PhD from Royal Holloway, University of London, in cultural geography, and my specialisms within London Development Trust are research and impact. My research looks at the ways to engage communities with environmental change through creative practice. We've also got Shingai on the call. So Shingai's background is in project monitoring and evaluation. So she's got experience in supporting projects and programs and mapping their outcomes and goals. So before coming to LDT, Shingai was working for the UN, and she holds a master's degree in environmental development. And Simon is our chief executive of London Development Trust, which provides social sustainability services on Woodbury Down, Acton Gardens and Grand Union housing regeneration sites. So the previous consultation. So we have been through the previous consultation, and we've just sort of picked up on some key areas that we think we can really develop some of the information that came from that. So our areas of focus are 4. So we want to focus on this idea of proactive biodiversity management. We think that is crucial for the scrubs. We also want to focus on removing physical barriers to the scrubs to ensure maximum accessibility for everybody. We realized that from the last consultation, there was a lot of consultation around who were using the scrubs and how they were using it, but there wasn't a lot of consultation with people who weren't currently using it. So we really want to understand who these excluded groups are and why they don't visit the scrubs as often as they may do. And we also want to include more about the local institutions, for instance, the hospital and the prison, because we think that they're key stakeholders in using the green space. So I think to start with, I just want to pause for a minute to think about biodiversity and why it is so important in urban wild spaces in particular. So I don't think that I can overstate the importance of biodiversity, particularly as the basis of all life on Earth. And it just demonstrates how interconnected we are in very complex ways in these webs. why do we need biodiverse areas? Because the diversity is key to building resilient ecosystems. So the more that you have different creatures, different plants, the more that things are able to adapt to their environments. Green spaces, and particularly urban green spaces, play key role in ecosystem services. So they act as wildlife corridors for wildlife. They act as flood defense, especially in SUDs, which are sustainable urban drainage systems, I believe. And they reduce urban temperatures, all of which are going to become increasingly important with climate change. And they also provide opportunities for education, relaxing, and understanding and enjoying nature. They're just nice places to be. So yeah, it's really important to look after our wild spaces. So biodiversity, planning for the future. So we understand from our preliminary research that there are a number of changes happening around Wormwood Scrubs. One of which will be increasing visitors. So visitor numbers to the Scrubs are projected to increase. This is due to increasing population density in the surrounding areas, and also more people accessing wild urban spaces since the pandemic. So we're just in the process of publishing a report about the changing use of green spaces, green and blue spaces in the pandemic, which is, it makes really interesting reading, especially when people don't have gardens. Like, the access to green space is absolutely critical for people's well-being. Climate change. So we know that climate change is happening, and it's happening quickly. And as it changes, it's going to be increasingly important to manage sites to mitigate against extreme weather, such as flooding and droughts, and to support resilient ecosystems the best we can. So we know that these changes are happening in the area, and I think the key to this consultation is trying to work out a balance that works for everybody. So we believe that people and wildlife are not mutually exclusive, so places can and should be designed for the benefit of all. So I want to just offer a little case study. So this is a site over in Hackney called Woodbury Wetlands. I don't know if anybody has been there before. It's really nice. So this is run by the London Wildlife Trust. And I just thought I wanted to include this here because I think there are some real parallels between Woodbury Wetlands and Wormwood Scrubs, in so much that it is, Woodbury Wetlands is actually a nature reserve, but it's also a place that really retains that kind of feeling of wildness. You step into it and it's just, it's like you're not even in London, and yet it's situated in one of the most densely populated areas. It's in Manor House in Hackney. So it is 11 hectares of reed-fringed ponds and dikes. That's really hard to say. The habitats that are there: reed beds, hedgerow, grassland, wildflower meadows, and orchards. So it was opened in 2016 by Sir David Attenborough, and before that it had been known as the Stoke Newington East Reservoir, so it's a drinking water reservoir, and it had been closed to the public for about 200 years. And the wetlands are the result of a proposal by the Trust to enhance the reservoir for wildlife and to open it up so that people can access it as a high quality natural space in a densely built up environment. And actually London Development Trust, in one of our subsidiary trusts, Manor House Development Trusts, was pivotal in supporting London Wildlife Trust to get the funding to be able to open this up. So they did things like they put in, there was some reed beds already there, but they put in a lot of the reed beds because they're just so fantastic for biodiversity and for migratory birds. And they used traditional methods to get them in. I remember the day they got like horses out to dredge part of the reservoir. So it supports large numbers of invertebrates, mammals, including bats, migratory and non-migratory birds. And it also has a cafe which does remarkably well. It's a really nice cafe. An education centre, forest school, family activities and evening events. And there's opportunities there for conservation volunteers and education volunteers. So the volunteer team help maintain reed beds, grassland hedgerows through regular conservation volunteering work days using traditional methods. And a programme of wildlife monitoring and surveying is also undertaken. So on that, the lead person who worked on opening up would-be wetlands is somebody that we have worked with previously, and in this I suggest that we go to him to get advice, because he is fantastic at understanding the particular needs of urban wild spaces. So this is David Mooney. David has 11 years experience and a strong reputation in the urban nature conservation sector. He was listed as in the Evening Standard as one of London's 1,000 most influential people, and he has expertise in developing strong partnerships across public, private and charity sectors and transforming London's open spaces for people and wildlife. Now, I'm not suggesting that London Wildlife Trust run Wormwood Scrubs. All I'm suggesting is that he would be a very good person just to get some steer on the kinds of things we could do in terms of biodiversity and how to really get that balance right between the needs of people wanting to access it and making it a really fantastic place for biodiversity and for wildlife. So David's led on the delivery of both Woodbury Wetlands and Walthamstow Wetlands, which are two of the largest wetland programmes in London in the last 20 years. And he leads London Wildlife Trust consultancy work, fundraising, and the development of the Trust's large-scale national natural heritage and habitat restoration projects across London. So yeah, it should be noted that I think with Woodbury Wetlands, the act of being involved really built up the biodiversity. So it has made it a far more high-value place for both people and for wildlife. So in terms of what we are going to do with this consultation, I'm now going to pass over to Shingai, who is going to lead on how we intend to do this with our methodology. If you just let me know when you want me to click the next slide on, Shingi.
Great, thank you, Miriam. In terms of our engagement strategy, this will essentially demonstrate how this commission intends to engage the community in and around Wormwood Scrubs. And our approach to community engagement emphasizes on the need to keep participants engaged throughout the entire process. And this is informed by our own work and understanding of community development. And our thinking on community development as the London Development Trust is based on our 5 keystones, which I think Miriam has may have touched on. And these are connecting, empowerment, space, influencing, and sustainable organization, before I forget any one of them. And these key principles are underpinned by the vision for us to see communities who work to create their own change. And the engagement strategy that we'll present today draws on these different elements to ensure that we're able to achieve the aim of this commission, which is to engage residents, to engage the current and future users of Wormwood Scrubs in an innovative and meaningful way, to ensure that community ownership of the overall design of the biodiversity master plan is realized. We can go to the next. Oh no, sorry, we stayed on this slide. Sorry, can we go back? In terms of the methodology throughout the process, we will make use of secondary data, quantitative data, and also qualitative data throughout the entire process. And this is for 3 main reasons. The first one is to get a very good grasp and understanding of the context that we're working in. And then for quantitative data, we want to understand, any patterns or occurrences in the data that we collect, which may be significant to us. And finally, for collecting qualitative data, we want to get a well-rounded understanding of the human stories behind any figures, data and statistics that we collect. So this will be used throughout the entire process. In terms of the strategy itself, what we mean by engagement is being able to continually involve the community or people that we are engaging in the decisions that have a direct impact on their lives. And as I mentioned before, this will use a mixed methods approach to data collection. So I'll begin with just describing the first stage, which we describe as mapping. And the goal of this is to, or the objective is to understand the context, the makeup, interests and needs in and around Wormwood Scrubs. So to begin this process, we will conduct a review of the relevant literature, which we've already started, to ensure that we've got evidence to demonstrate everything that we are trying to show, and also that we're able to identify any gaps, any issues and opportunities. So this is something that we've already started, and we are nearing the end of that process, but we will continue as we go on. The second stage is the inform stage, and we will we're hoping to inform stakeholders that we've identified in the mapping process to ensure that we allow sufficient time for people to find out about the opportunity to be involved in this consultation, and also to consider some of the issues that they might want to bring up. And so they have a fair chance of actually giving us useful feedback that we can then use. So at this stage, the main aim is for us to be timely as possible, and also to be as broad as we can in terms of the methods we use to spread the word about this consultation so that we can reach a diverse group of people. And I'll share some examples of how we intend doing that. We're hoping to use the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham website and any social media pages they have. We'll use our own website and social media pages to also promote this. We've got a centre in Acton Garden, which is quite close distance, and so we'll use that as a place where we can also show the consultation as well. We'll use posters and leaflets which will be distributed in and around Wormwood Scrubs, local shops, restaurants, businesses, possibly the hospital, the prison, Linford Christie Stadium, and so on. And where possible, we'll make phone calls and emails to relevant organisations that we do not have access to. And following this, we will then start the consultation process. For this, we'll use a range of different techniques, which I will highlight in the next slide. The aim here is to ensure that the voice of the wider community is reflected in the feedback that we receive. And what's key for us here is to ensure that the views that we receive are representative and proportionate based on the scale of the impact this master plan will have. And for this, we're going to use, I'll touch on this again in a following slide, but I think one of the key things that we're trying to do is we want to use different types of engagement methods for different groups of people that we have identified. And for example, that will include different methods such as online surveys and paper and pen surveys. That will also include semi-structured interviews and focus groups, and will actively seek out those voices that are usually left out. So our focus is to really target young people, the disabled, the elderly, and people who are in ethnic minority groups. And on the last one, which is to engage and involve, we'll look to involve the community in a very practical way to ensure that their aspirations and the concerns that they have are directly reflected in the design of the master plan. And this will be done through creative workshops. In terms of the data collection methods, as I've mentioned, we'll embark on using different data collection methods so that we are inclusive and responsive and also accessible to the given target groups that we have identified. And here is the list of the different methods we'll use. So that includes Vox Pops, the workshops, the paper and pen surveys, and also online surveys. As I also highlighted before, we will use the information gathered from the different stages of the consultation to inform how we will engage people and the best tools to use to make sure that we get the right people to take part. And most of this has been done during the mapping stage, and we'll aim to be as responsive as possible. So if we do need to change the method that we've been using to engage people, we will do that once we've had time to reflect and see whether if it's working or not. And in terms of the target groups that we have identified, so we have identified young people and families and young children, families with young children, sorry. We have identified the current users of Wormwood scrubs, ethnic minority groups, disabled users, and surrounding institutions such as the hospital and also the prison. In terms of the next steps for the consultation, we'll continue with the research into the relevant work that's been done at the scrubs and other sites across London. So we are, as I said before, we are close to the end of this particular stage. We will then contact key stakeholders and arrange interviews and focus groups, and then we'll begin to survey users of the scrubs. And then we'll go on to a consultation with David Mooney. For the key dates that you may need to note, so for each of the stages, we've got a period of time that we intend on working on each stage. So for the mapping stage, this was between February and early March, and I think I'm happy to say that we are on track with that. The informing stage has already started, and we intend to finish that in mid-March. And then following that stage, which will be the consultation stage, we hope to start in April and complete that process by mid-May. We will then go on to analyze the data that we've received, and then hopefully have something to present or share in June. We have also been thinking about the ways that we're going to track the progress of the work that we're doing. So we've put in place a monitoring plan for this commission, and this includes some of our intended outcomes, the indicators of success, and some of the targets that we've placed in these. We are happy to receive any feedback on the targets. If you feel that they should be increased or they're not realistic, we are happy to get any feedback on that. And to ensure that we reach each of these, we've put in place a few mechanisms to be able to do that. So we've agreed on fortnightly update meetings to report any progress or any challenges that we face in each stage of the process, and then a monthly written report to the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham team. And we will be reflective throughout the process to see what we can improve on throughout the entire process. In terms of the different KPIs, I'll start with the first one, and they're all related to the different stages of the consultation. The first one is to understand context, makeup, and interests. And so for the KPI for this is improved understanding of the challenges and contextual factors associated with the design of the Wormwood Scrubs master plan. And the target for this is to have, at the end, a comprehensive literature review for this. And then for the expected outcome 2, we're hoping that engagement is promoted broadly and in a timely manner. And the KPI is the number of platforms used to communicate the consultation, and then also the total number of people who attend open workshops. The target for the platforms is 8. Would be happy if we can get more, of course. And then the target for the total number of people that attend the open workshops would be 20, and hopefully we'll be looking for a diverse group of people who engage in these workshops. For expected outcome 3, we're hoping that the responses received reflect a diverse voice from the community. And the KPIs we're looking at here is the total number of surveys or email responses that we get or that we receive, and then percentage of responses from identified marginalized groups. For the first one, we're targeting a total of 70 surveys and email responses. And then at least 50% of the responses should come from some of the groups that we've identified that we want to focus on. And finally, we want to see the final design of the master plan. We want it to be reflective of the views of the community, and the KPI is the percentage of community feedback included in the final design of the master plan. And we are targeting for that at least 50% of the feedback that we receive is included in the final design. And that takes me to the end of this presentation, I think. Thank you. We're happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, both of you. That was incredibly thorough and brilliant. Thank you so much for your time and all of the hard work putting that together. I am sure there are going to be several questions. So Miriam, can I go to you first and then Helen?
Yes, also thank you. That does look immensely thorough. Firstly, sort of housekeeping point, can we get a copy of these slides, and subject to discussion with the Friends trustees, can we put them on our website? And also again, subject to discussion with the Friends trustees, I think it would make sense to publicize the consultation across our website and social media platforms as well. And then moving on to questions. I mean, you said that you're starting from the work that's been done, but is the sort of consultation or the sort of the scope of the questions asked going to be based on that, or is it going to be, for want of a better way of putting it, blind? Are you just simply seeking opinion with no reference to what's been done before?
I'll take that one. No, we will be referencing what has been done before. I think, yeah, it's a good question. That's the plan at any rate.
Thank you. Miriam, was there anything else before I go on to Helen?
Yes, just one quick follow-up. So in an earlier draft of the papers for this meeting, there was an overview of what you were planning to do, including a list of possible stakeholders. And
that was a draft that shouldn't have gone onto the website.
Okay.
So that, yeah, shouldn't have been.
Is to be set aside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Rowbottom.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for your presentation. It looks really exciting. A couple of questions from me. Firstly, you spoke a lot about ensuring that voices that don't always get heard do get heard, and I wondered if you could talk through from your experience about if there are particular groups and therefore particular methods that are successful at reaching different groups of people. And I also wondered, on one of your KPIs, I think it was the last one, you mentioning that you had a goal of, I think, 50% inclusion in the final plan of community feedback. But I wondered whether that community feedback was going to be anchored in a sort of representative of the community. And if so, whether you were using a particular geography. So, you know, if you could probably get data, the council, I'm sure, would be happy to support about the geography of the area. And would you therefore be seeking for it to be reflective or proportionate to those groups, or is that really hard to do, given that some groups are harder to reach than others? If that makes sense, I'm happy to clarify if it doesn't.
Yes, so for the first question, you mentioned in the different engagement methods for different groups. In our own work with LDT, we've found that we've done quite a lot. I'll use an example with young people. We found that working with young people is, you know, quite difficult to get them to, you know, just do an ordinary paper and pen survey or an online survey. We found that Vox Pops are quite useful, and we're able to get meaningful data from that. And that allows the young people to be quite comfortable, and they're able to better express themselves in a way which is useful for us. In terms of the second question, I think it would be quite difficult to get, you know, a number which is proportionate to the borough, because again, it would mean we're getting a very, very large data set. So we just thought that 50% would be reasonable based on, you know, 60 surveys that we do. At least probably 30 of them are diverse enough for us. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I think maybe I was a slight misnomer. I was mainly just thinking, if you have a kind of natural geography that you're looking at of, you know, you want a certain number of respondents to whatever you put out to get the views. I wondered what the geography is that you're looking at. So how, you know, how big is the patch of Wormwood Scrub stakeholder? And it's obviously very hard to get a totally representative, you know, feedback, because some groups are harder to reach than others. But I suppose my question was, what's your natural neighbourhood or your geography you're looking at to engage?
Okay, I think that's something we have not looked into it yet, but we can definitely look into that and make sure that it is better representative. I think that's something we can look
Suffice
into.
to oh, sorry, Simon.
I think we'll take your advice. Obviously, you're the councillors, you're the friends. You know what the neighbourhood is there, and will be advised and directed by yourself. I think during the process, if we see that there are groups who are difficult to reach and they're being counted in the survey, we can make more effort to make sure that we're reaching those people. But that will become evident as we go along, and we can see the different demographies who are doing the survey. But for the geographical area, we're very happy to be directed by yourselves.
Great, thank you. I didn't know at what stage of the scoping you were at, but I'm suffice to say, I'm sure we'd be happy to provide. We've got quite good data, so happy to give that to you. And if young people, we've got a very We've got a very good youth council actually, who are quite plugged into things. So again, just say the word, we can put you in touch with them via schools. They've done quite a lot of good engagement.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Perfect. Stephen?
Yes, thank you again for a very thorough presentation. My question is not unrelated to what Councillor Rowbottom was just saying, because this is a subcommittee of the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham, but Wormwood Scrubs is at the very extremity of that borough, and a very significant proportion of the users of Wormwood Scrubs live in Ealing, Brent, Kensington and Chelsea, all of which are very close. And if you don't talk to people in those boroughs, as well as people in Hammersmith and Fulham, you won't be talking to a representative group of users and non-users, which I understand to be your objective. And I wanted to say that because I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it within the time scale and the budget, but I think if you don't do it, you won't have done a proper job to your own satisfaction. And secondly, on the, you talked extensively, Shingai, about consulting David Mooney, I think his name was, who's the director of the London Wildlife Trust, who have a long involvement with the Scrubs, of course, but so do a number of other ecologists, including the borough's own ecologist, Sebastian Dunnett, including Dr. Tilly Collins, who's heads Imperial College's ecology department, and who's an honorary advisor to the Friends, and we can point you in those directions if it's helpful. So please ask Miriam and me any help you need at any point on people or ideas, as well as the formal consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. I should say we have lightly discussed reaching people who are out of borough as well, noting the location of the Scrubs. So that is something that's under consideration. And thank you very much. Lovely. Any other questions from the committee?
My question is not really to the LDT team, but to the officers and yourself, Chair, because this is the first stage and it's hoped to get a first draft to our June meeting, I understand. But following that, there'll be a new brief for landscape designers, tender packages, probably a consultation on the new master plan, as then put forward, and then appointment of contractors. Is there a proper timescale and plan for getting through that quite complex process so that we get on with this before we're all extinct?
There is. I'll let Stephen come on with this, but I think, as I've said all along, the most important thing to me is getting this right and not rushing it for this, the sake of a few months, to not get this to be as good as it possibly can be as a process. Feels like it would feel like a wasted opportunity if we didn't make sure that we were trying to give this whole process the time and justice it needed. Steve, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yes, Chair, just to say that we are in the process just thinking about scoping that out, so we are ready to hit the ground running, as it were, once the draft is delivered.
Thank you. Right, anything else? Fine. Thank you so much to the three of you, well, four of you, for coming in. Very lovely to see you. And thank you so much. I think the thoroughness of your presentation hasn't left us with many unanswered questions. So thank you so much for all of the time that's gone into that. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome to stick around for the rest of the meeting. You may have other things that you would rather do with your time. So completely up to you, but it's very, very nice to see you, and thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I'm going to dash and put this one to bed. But, yeah, enjoy the rest of your meeting. Thank you.
I hope you both feel better.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you again. Lovely. All right. Steve, item 2.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm just looking. Is my camera on? I can't see it on my screen.
It is, yes.
Okay, fine. Yes, thank you, Chair. Item 2 is an update on the grounds maintenance contract. So pleased to confirm that the new contract started on the 1st of February and has, several improvements, increased the sensitivity of the ecological management. And we have a separate tree contract as well with red squirrel. Again, that started from the 1st of February. We have, it is a requirement of the contract that all vehicles will become electric as well as equipment, and that will work throughout the year as supplies come in, but they're already getting some vehicles in, which is good. There's also a requirement to have an apprentice in this contract, and they have appointed one, and again, in terms of social value, that person is from Hammersmith and Fulham Borough. The really good addition, I think, in their bid was the Environment and Biodiversity Manager for the Scrubs. And I know that some of the friends have met Kate McVeigh, who is in post, and there was a meeting with representatives of the Friends last Friday at Linford Christie to go through the proposed work programme on the Scrubs over the year. So I hope that went well. In addition, there's a learning hub, and as we mentioned earlier, we are looking for a suitable location for that, and we are actively talking to Thames Valley Harriers, and we can pick up that conversation when we meet them with their plans as well. I think the other thing to mention, apart from better information management that we'll be able to provide through their system, is that they're also doing a resident satisfaction survey, not just for all parks, but also one specifically for the Scrubs as well, and that will be going out shortly and could be a good benchmark in the contract year on year moving forward. So happy to take any questions on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions on this section, Stephen?
Yes, I think it's a good start, and I agree that the Kate McVeigh is a good addition, and no doubt the apprentice will be too, because they're on site most of the time, which is very good. The resident satisfaction survey, again, if we can help by sending it out through our social media and website and so on, please do, because I've certainly not seen it yet, and perhaps it'll go into the notice boards that were recently erected, into which we have just put a very good bird poster. Anyone who's walking, strongly recommend having a look. I think it's on our website too, the bird poster. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very good plug for the Friends website there. Steve, what's the scope of that resident survey? Is that for Hammersmith and Fulham residents, or is it for outer borough residents as well?
It's well, anybody can actually access it, but there are going to be QR codes in open spaces which people can access it through. It'll also be on the website and the Biodiversity's website as well. But yes, we can circulate it through the Friends and other groups. So it's users of the Scrubs and users of parks in the borough. So that could well include, I'm sure it does, people from outside the borough.
Thank you. All right, any other questions on this section? Fine. All right, moving on. Steve, section 3, HS2 update.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I'm sure people are aware that the installation of the hoarding and fencing has been complete, and the school artwork is up on the hoarding, and you'll be aware of the lighting which has been installed, and the work the Friends have done to ensure that the outside lighting is turned off and the inside lighting is only needed for when the security guards are there or there's work on site. So I think it's fair to say that BBS and HS2 have been listening on that aspect. I think the other thing to say is that the shaft and pipe jacking work has commenced for the sewer, and they are monitoring that, I believe, for vibration and noise, and that the program is still that they will clear the site and have reinstatement by the end of August. And we've obviously discussed with them about reinstatements and having a small fence up, which will happen. In terms of the UTX site, again, they've started the work to get the pipe jacking so they can install that pipe for the utilities. I understand that's going to be done by the end of May. But as discussed previously, they've got work to do north of the scrubs for the utilities, and therefore they won't install the utilities until next year. And the station is still anticipated to be open at the end of 2029. I think the other thing to mention, which is in the report, is last time I did say that they've been given notice that they were intended to give us notice on compulsory purchasing areas on the scrubs. And there were 3 areas which reported last time. I can confirm that we have received those notices, and they've come into force from the 18th of March. And they are the first one on that map of Plan 1, rather, is that 14 square metres, which is about the realignment of Old Oak Common Lane, which will then become pavement and go back to Ealing Council as the highway authority. The other area is the UTX site on Plan 2, which is all the scrubs. And again, that we are still haven't had an absolute guarantee that will come back, but although officers on the work and site say they don't want it, we haven't had that legal guarantee. I don't think we're going to get it, but we will keep pursuing that. And then the third area is the subsoil around the pipe for the utilities, which is underground, which will remain with HS2, I understand. So we just had those notices to make you aware of that. And that's really it from HS2. There was a meeting last night. Unfortunately, I only got on the end of it, but I'm not aware of anything addition to that has come up. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, there was a meeting last night. Unfortunately, Steve and I didn't get the details of it until it had already started. So I know we joined a bit late, but Miriam, I know you were there throughout, so I'm sure you'll let us know if there was anything unexpected there. They did reference the land being returned to us in that meeting, but again, weren't going to provide any legal assurances, contrary to what they said a few months ago. So that's disappointing and concerning, but we are hopeful that the land will be returned. I've had a couple of letters from various senior people at HS2 saying that they don't want to hold on to the land, but they have stopped short of guaranteeing its return, which, as long-term watchers will know, always does slightly raise a red flag when it comes to things pertaining to HS2. Steve, just on these maps, I know that we've asked for maps, so 2.2 and then 2.1. They're slightly unhelpful because 2.1 doesn't include that sort of, I'm saying the hammerhead, but that sticky out bit of 2.1, which is trust land. And I wondered if we could just ask again to have maps that show separately the bit that is trust land and the bit that isn't, because I think it just complicates things to have Plan 2 being entirely trust land and 2.1 having a tiny section of trust land and non-trust land.
I understand, Chair. Yes, I'll ask for that. You're absolutely right. It's the subsoil area is mainly on open space for the borough, and it's that small sliver, like a hammerhead, as you say, is within the trust land. So I will separate those out, and obviously we'll need to negotiate compensation separately for each organisation.
Well, that's it. That's why I think having separate maps would be so helpful, just because we can then here. Thank you. Miriam.
Yeah, so on the meeting last night, I mean, there were no major surprises, or really no surprises. I think it's obviously going to be critical to monitor HS2 very closely during the period of 24/7 works when they're doing the tunnelling, starting from the Scrubs compound under the railway going north, and then obviously also the UTX tunnelling, because they will have lights on 24/7, and they claim there will be minimal noise. But I think observers remain skeptical. And then I think the other point is really that we sort of must continue to push for something more robust than a letter from someone who might not be in post in 2028, which is when the land theoretically comes back. And needless to say, there are, I think, significant concerns among the Friends that around that issue.
I think that's completely shared, which is why we are. So just to reassure you, we are pushing for that.
Thank you.
And we're trying to make sure that all of our correspondence is also in writing, so we do at least have a record of it going on. We are also very conscious of the monitoring as the works go on, particularly that tunnelling month. So I've asked for additional vibration monitors to be in place for that month. We've asked lots of questions about the light switches, which I think were referenced last night, because it sounds like originally the lights weren't, they were all connected along the access path and then the sewer route. So I've asked for them to be separated so that when it works in the sewer side, that whole strip won't be lit up. That will only be lit up as and when they're doing the security walkarounds. But it would be very helpful if residents could keep an eye on that and let us know if that's being adhered to or if we need to have a word. Thank you. Stephen.
Yes, I'd like to emphasize the need to monitor everything they do, because they talk a good line, but they don't always fulfill it, unfortunately. There is a generator that was installed, which was incredibly polluting, both in terms of noise and fumes. And we made a formal complaint to them. Well, that's how they treated our polite question. And they have now upheld our complaint, and they have made their contractors switch the system so that the generator powers batteries, so it's only switched on when it's needed to, and so it's less noise polluting and less fumes polluting. But why couldn't they think of that first? They're supposed to be green and so on.
Just last night they made the point that all their generators are going to be in accordance with the new standard.
Well, I'm glad.
Well done. That's very good impact to have made.
It's a small victory we've had. But we do, I do emphasize again the need to get legally binding commitment from them. And it may well be that if you were to suggest that without it, we will formally object to the CPO and there will have to be a full public inquiry, that might sharpen their attention a little, because that will cost them a great deal of money and delay. It risks costing us money too, but it may be worth at least raising that if you haven't already. I have been party to forcing London Transport into Public Works Transport Act full public inquiry. It's had a remarkable result.
Good to know and noted. Thank you. Yes, just so we completely share those concerns. Thank you. Right. Any other questions on this item? As I say, that observation piece, we will obviously be doing all we can from the council, but it is again helpful if residents, particularly on Braybrook Street, can let us know if all of those promises are being adhered to. Thank you. All right, Steve, number 4.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So some good news about the play equipment. The application we made has been successful for a total project for the play of 92,000 or thereabouts. Part of the application we did have to submit match funding, which was originally staff time. In fact, it was Heather's time, to be open and frank, but Heather, as we know, was funded by HS2, so actually we couldn't include that. So we will have to put that match funding in. There was an administration fee as well for the bid. I know since that bid has gone in, There's been further consultation, and I know some residents would like a trampette or a ground trampoline, which we estimate be a further 5,000. So we're at a stage now where we need to submit monitoring and evaluation plans to the funder, and obviously we go out to tender, which is part of the grant conditions, and that will take us hopefully to have a final figure and confirmed public announcement that this is happening by the time of our next committee. But I am requesting that we do fund the 25% and the admin fee and approve 28,000 or so pounds to receive the grant of the 69. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, both I and the students of Old Oak are very much in favour of this. Are there any other questions before we go to a vote? Lovely. Well, that's approved by me. Councillor Rowbottom?
Approved.
Great. Lovely. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay, item 5 was an update on some excellent work the Friends and Groundwork have done on hedge laying on the scrubs. This was funded by HS2, and there were 6 sessions of volunteers with approximately 12 in each, organised through the Friends. And that's gone extremely well with volunteers, not just coming from the scrubs, but from across the borough. Due to the bird nesting season, of course, we've now stopped that, and I know everybody involved would like to reconvene in the autumn to finish the job. So we have gone back to groundwork to ask for a further quote on that work, and see if we can get them to sharpen their pencil, as people have started working already and understand it and may not require so much supervision, but we'll have to see what they come back with. So it's proposed to get that quote and come back to the next meeting in June, and then we can approve or not the work to start in the autumn.
Thank you, Steve. I've got 2 questions on this, and they may be the same ones that Miriam has got. So number 1 is whether the signage has gone up already, and when, if not, when it's going to go up. And secondly, I think I sent an email to Steph about the hedges being trimmed to 1 metre, and there were concerns from residents that there were already birds nesting. I just wondered if there was an update on that.
Yes, so the signs and the rope for the bird nesting season have gone up. I'm informed. I haven't seen them, but I believe they have gone up. And then I think there was some miscommunication on the 1 metre. I think it was Steph, one of our officers, was suggesting that we should reduce the width of the hedge by 1 metre, not the height, to 1 metre. So, but that won't happen now because of the bird nesting season until the autumn.
Fine, thank you. Miriam?
At our meeting with Biodiversity on Friday, one of the things that was suggested was that Kate and also the apprentice, whose name I don't know, I apologise for that, could both do the NVQ course in hedge laying, and then over time they could take over the sort of management or leading of that process, because obviously it's a multi-year process. You do a section each year. It's not as if all the rest of the hedging would be laid this autumn, but so that's something to be borne in mind.
Yes, Chair, if I can come back on that, I think that's an excellent suggestion by them, because obviously we, if they're going to manage the scrubs, which they are for the next 10 years, then the more skills and more they can lead volunteers, the better. So yeah, that's great news.
And then also eventually we could have a hedge laying competition sometime in the future.
Okay.
Why not? Thank you. Great. Lovely. Anything else on hedges, other than to say a huge thank you and well done to all of the volunteers and everyone who's given their time to build the hedges? Fine. All right, moving on then to item 6, grounds maintenance and site management update.
Yes, so our ongoing maintenance with the footpath servicing, as it continues to be very wet, so a lot of sandy loam has gone down, and we continue to put down wood chippings and mulch. That will be ongoing, and we have also maintained the 2 metre path around the SBS, the Stamford Brook Sewers, hoarding as an alternative route. So that's hopefully taking some of the traffic from the main route. We mentioned the signage, so I understand that is in place. And we have also, again, with the Friends, done some planting of tree whips, 250 in all, in the northeast and eastern areas, and 53 standard trees. This was done in February and March, which again is really good. We've also planted 2,000 bulbs, again with the Friends of the Scrubs and dementia group, and again the Scrubs volunteers were led by Emma Ranson. So yeah, some really good joint working between the council, our contractor, and the volunteers to improve things on the Scrubs, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. Great. Any other questions on this? No, again, huge thank you and well done to that group of volunteers. It sounds lovely. All right, traffic management update. Oh, sorry, Miriam.
Yes, just one other point on signage. I mean, I think something is going to go into the notice boards about hedge laying, but it might be useful to have some signage by the section of hedge that's been laid, because clearly there are, you know, not all users understand what it is. And some people think the hedge has been killed, and Emma, who did sterling work on the hedge laying itself, is doing sterling work on explaining hedge laying to people, but we might need a little more explanation.
Do you think signage would be best then?
I don't know. I mean, we'll come on to this, I suspect, in any other business. We are planning a sort of another, yeah, in the sort of same spirit as the one we did for COP, another Friends Day in late May, where one of the things we thought we might do is have a sort of hedge laying explanation. But I do think there definitely needs to be sort of better awareness of what it is and its very legitimate ecological purpose.
Okay, well, let's take that conversation offline and see what we can do about that. Fine, thank you.
Okay, so traffic management chair, yes, this has come to a couple of committees now. This is try and improve the traffic management where the old system had broken. We had an original estimate of 63,000. We thought we could go with that. We had to go out to tender, which we have done, and as you can see, we had 2 quotes of 79.69. They did include extra bollards though to stop people going round the barrier. So we are proposing that we go for quote 2, which was 69,000, which included 4 bollards to stop vehicles avoiding the barrier, and to approve that quote and get on with the work.
I'm happy with that. It feels like a 10% increase, given that prices seem to be going through the roof, or within 10% feels pretty good deal. So I think, yeah, I'm happy to press ahead with that and get it done. Good. Is that agreement from the rest of the committee?
Approved.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Weekend parking charges, again, something that's been dragging on a bit, I'm afraid, but the order's out and we can do it now. But I have to say, I went up there and looked at the signage, and it hasn't been changed, and so it needs to be changed before we implement it.
Right.
Half highways, we're convinced it had been changed, but our contractors hadn't done it. So we need to change the signs, but we can, as soon as we get those up, we can do it. We have the order in place.
Okay, all right, thank you. Well, let's follow up on that one. Stephen, was that a hand up and then a hand down? I think you're muted.
It was to make the point that Steve has just made, that it's not yet in place. So
fair enough. Miriam.
Yes, just on the weekend parking, there's point that implementation will be monitored to ensure there is not significant displacement into residential areas. I think this is one of these areas where the interests of the council and the interests of the trusts may not be strictly aligned, in so much as the trust wants to maximize its parking revenue and potential displacement of parking to local residential areas. It's also, by the way, an area of tension within the Friends, given parking would obviously be sort of dispersed probably to the Old Oak estate, but it's just a sort of tricky thing to balance, I would say.
We recognise that, and that's why it would be a trial that is monitored just to see how it goes. I mean, the reality is if people then don't use the car park and go and park on the estate, it's then a
then you're not, yes, yeah, sure.
So we need to find out if it's a scheme that works before we make a decision about whether it's something that remains permanent.
Okay.
But yes, we are aware that it is going to have a mixed response. But again, just to stress that it will be a trial, and it will be a monitored trial. But thank you. Okay, section 8.
Yes, this is about events, and again, you asked about the sports day for further information. There isn't a lot on the what's written down, but I found out the sports day is organised. It's a corporate event really, from large hotels, and they put in corporate teams of staff against each other. It is a sports day. There's no live music. They finish at 6, but there will be some food concessions just to support them. It is an event, and so the money comes to the Scrubs. It's about £1,500, but the events team, so you know, are putting in fees and charges that they should have a finder's fee. They do it for filming of 25%. So if you film in a school, for example, the school get income, but the events team have done the work to get the business, as it were. So that's where we are on this event, and hopefully we can go ahead with that on that basis.
Miriam?
I just want to check I heard that correctly. It would be £1,500.
That's right. Yes, Miriam.
I mean, that I've no idea how much one should charge to rent out a chunk of a park, including, or a common in this case, including sort of provision for food trucks and the like, but it doesn't seem very much. Maybe that's the going rate, I don't know.
If I can come back to you, I think it's based on the sports pitches really. I mean, we can review charges, and we may be able to add additional charges for food concessions, etc. We can have a look at that. Yeah. I think it's about the sports area.
Sorry, I think my concern about this is that 2,000 people. That's a lot of people. I'm assuming that this is going to be a weekday. Or
no, it's a Sunday, the 11th, finishing at 6 o'clock.
Okay. I feel like there is, particularly with food concessions, I imagine there's going to be a lot of litter produced from this, even if they have the best intentions in the world. I'm not opposed to events happening on Scrubs. I feel like that's a lot of people for not a lot of money. Because what is that after 25%? 1,100 or something like that. So,
well, I think presumably also, I mean, I have no idea when the football season actually starts, but a lot of those on a Sunday, a lot of those pitches could be rented out anyway. So yeah, it just doesn't seem like enough money to me.
I think that's my feeling on it. Sorry, I know I maybe sound like a bit of a naysayer. I am open to events, but it feels like the cost of this is pretty low for an event that will massively increase footfall for one day. And I think particularly with food concessions will cause will cause problems in terms of waste. It's a lot of people for a weekend day as well. I mean, Helen, you're the other vote on this, so do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't sound like I agree with all your points about value or cost at the end. Are there any I mean, it would be good to have a broader range of things that we're going to include in or out of scope for events, or what our red lines would be, and to prove, I suppose, that I don't know how competitive it is for the space, whether we've had different pitches, but what the going rates tend to be for these kinds of hires as well. It doesn't seem like that much for the risk to me either, I would agree.
I think that's my fault. If they were willing to pay more, I might be more tolerant of it, but it's not a lot of money for what feels like might be a massive litter pick exercise afterwards. And it's again a lot of football in an area. And I mean, September it will have had the summer to dry out, but it might be getting wet again, and it feels like the risk is slightly too high for that amount of money, I'm afraid. Sorry, Steve. As I say, I'm open to events, but I think maybe we could just do a review of the costs and see if, I mean, if that's market rate, that's fair enough, but it'd be good to do a review and find out if that is kind of fair.
Maybe something that's more directly in, I guess, sorry, to us in is the kind of like we would have parameters of min and max spend afterwards on clear up and what that would be, because we've got to put that into a baseline to work out whether it's actually worth doing.
Yeah.
So what is the cost of a massive litter pick on a, you know, whatever time of day on a Sunday?
Well, that's exactly, I assume, I don't know, see if I might be wrong on this, but I assume Ida Verde would then be expected to kind of come in and deal with any litter, and whether that is something that they would do in a timely way.
Yes, Chair, and what we tend to do on events, we would ask them to confirm their cleaning up arrangements or give them a price for doing it. Yeah, so that we would cover that off before we agreed, you know, as part of the terms of the event, that we know, are you doing it or are we doing it, and if we are doing it, this is the cost. And we often have a bond as well for reinstatement. I mean, I can go back to them and, you know, feedback your comments and try and renegotiate a higher figure, and look at our fees and charges to give us more scope.
That would be good, because it would be good to know what the cost per head is in Fulham. I've just worked out, and it's something like 56p a head for 2,000 attendees, which does seem like a bit of a bargain for a full corporate day. So yeah, if you could have a look at the Fulham charges and see what they were, and see what comparable events are. Stephen and Helen.
I just wanted to agree with those who think that this is going to be a very disruptive event, however well managed, to the more conventional users and uses of the scrubs. And I don't think that a fee anywhere in the range discussed begins to compensate for that disruption, even if there are no problems with it.
Thank you. Helen?
Would agree. I think we need to charge quite a bit more. But I'm aware that it's obviously the spirit of the event is good and something we'd like to support. But I know obviously because it's happened before. How did it go there in Fulham? You know, what was I don't know what kind of state was the site left afterwards, etc. It'd be good to have some idea of the precedent as well. but not worth scoping that much before we have more money. I don't think it's very
yeah. Thank you. I think those are all good points. I'm mindful of the timeline. Presumably they will need confirmation sooner rather than later. Are the committee happy to delegate this to me and Steve to talk about, and we'll work out a way forward? Thank you. I think I've got the committee there. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you,
again, we are open to events, but they just need to be worth it, worth the impact for the cost. Fine, thank you. Okay, Kensington Academy license extension.
Yes, so as the committee are aware, they asked for this some time ago. We couldn't have this delegated, so it had to come back to committee because of the value. So it's from July till the end of March this year at 26,500 a month. And so it's just to approve that extension.
Thank you. We have already discussed this. So if there's anything you can add, then we can. But again, I am concerned that they have been operating without a license since July, so approved to get this in place as quickly as possible. Thank you. All right. Recruitment.
And recruitment, again, we've covered the trust manager in the past, so we weren't going to include the fundraising in this. So I'm ready to go out to try and recruit this trust manager again. That's ready to go. The other post is obviously Heather's replacement. So we have advertised for that. We have some suitable candidates, and we will be interviewing later this month, and hopefully we'll be able to appoint, so we'll have somebody in place for the next committee.
Great, thank you.
The next item is community safety, and Neil Morrison's been very patient and been on the call, so I'll hand over to him, Chair.
Yes, thank you very much, Steve, and welcome, Neil.
Hi there, thank you very much, Steve. It's good to hear all the wonderful things you've got planned for the scrubs. It's good to hear. So I did send a copy of our report in to Stephen. I hope that got shared through. So obviously the LET team have been set up now since April last year, and we have got 2 dedicated ward officers for Ward 1, which Scrubs falls in part of. So just picking up some things. So from the 16th of December, which was the day before our last meeting, until the 26th in February, there's been 380 various reports into on our LET inspections of when we've been up at the Wormwood Scrubs. And we've been engaging with residents, visitors, dog walkers, hospital workers as such. I know the dog walking is a regular one that comes up with people walking more than 4 dogs and the license. So we have had 28 interactions with dog walkers, and we've been educating them on the need to get a license if you are a professional, and obviously the council ruling as well. If you're recreationally walking your dog, you need to have no more than 4 per person. So this has been an ongoing engagement with residents, and also with Steve. I'd like to get some signage and your new signs for the LET put up, and also educating the people of using scrubs about the license requirement that council have got in place, because a lot of the people we do speak to are unaware of it. So, and it seems to be a genuine unaware of the need to have a license to walk around on the scrubs with dogs. We've had a report of a tent that was left in the Western Copse. We, over a period of a week, visited to try and engage with anyone that was there. We determined it was empty, and with the help of Biodiversity, they cleared that off the land for us. On the 10th of January, we met myself and 2 officers. We did meet with Stephen, and we had a nice patrol around the scrubs to discuss issues faced. It was unfortunate. It was just, I think, a bad day that no other friends of the scrubs were able to attend that day. But we had a nice discussion with Stephen on. He was able to point out in the flesh areas of concern in and around, and we talked about the hedgerows at the back and dog users going into those as well. So as part of that is we've increased our patrols in there and just educating the people about the wildlife that could be in there. So dogs need to be very much under control in that, well, not in that area. They need to be using the paths either side of that or onto the main land of the scrubs to exercise their dogs. Okay, so as I said, interactions with logged 308, which equates to average 4.2 a day, and a total of 172 man hours on the scrubs, again, which equates to 2 hours 20 average a day on the scrubs itself. Just touching on to Braybrook Street, we had a concern from a friend of the scrubs about drug dealing down towards the end of her road. So we took that on ourselves and the night team to do extended patrols on Braybrook Street at targeted times when she said and we had the reports in of these interactions were happening. We have engaged with, I haven't got the number down, but we haven't found the same vehicle more than once. When we've asked them questions, we've taken down registration plates of anything that we feel might be a bit suspicious. And the cars we have gone up to spoke to, most of the time has been legitimate causes for people to be there rather than drug dealing on there. Miriam, you've got a hand. Was there a question or something? Sorry, I've just seen your hand go up.
Yes, and maybe you were going to get to this anyway. I just wanted to know where you'd got to with enforcement powers to fine professional dog walkers who were in breach of the licence condition.
So I reached out to Parks on that, and the response from the Parks team were that if we are to find someone who we feel is a professional dog walker and they haven't got this licence on display, or we feel they haven't got a licence, we are to get in to request their details, which they need to provide us under the powers that we've got for CSAS, and it's an offence not to give us our name and details, and we are to pass that on to the Parks team, who will then take it from there in terms of writing to the person, and then I don't know, I'm not 100% sure from there, unless Stephen's got some more information of what actions those guys you would take on those people, Stephen. So that's what we've been told. If we find someone who we feel is a professional dog walker, hasn't got a license, we are to report it through to them. We have had a few phone emails of pictures of the dog walkers in from friends of the scrubs as well, which is great. Some of them are people we have seen before. They are very good at seeing us and trying to avoid us. So nothing short of us trying to sprint across the scrubs after them is proving difficult. And it is something that I've spoken to my team about, and we spoke to Stephen on the day how we'd like to do a mini operation, so to speak, on the scrubs, where we get all of our guys on when we've got both of our teams in, so circa 12 officers, where we can really have a massive impact on the scrubs and have a massive presence, so that we can try and, there's nowhere to hide, so to speak, we can capture these people walking across and trying to avoid us because they see us coming. So that is something that we definitely want to action moving forward. Again, if there's any ideal times, I suppose the professional dog walkers, we've had a few reports, they mostly come to the scrubs sort of 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning. Again, any information that you guys have when you see these regular people on the scrubs, feed it back into us, so our action can be more targeted towards the times they'll be there, opposed to when they're not normally there. If that makes sense. And if it would be a Saturday morning, if that'd be the best day, or is it Monday to Friday? These professional dog walkers are out because obviously they're picking up dogs from people working. So if there's a particular day, time that's best, any feedback on that is welcome for that one.
Thank you.
I believe we've shared our ward email inbox now, and we've now got a telephone number which I've put into there, so hopefully everyone's got that, so people that aren't computer literate or prefer to pick up the phone, they can now ring us and make a report, and that will get taken down and then passed through to the relevant teams as well. I'm happy to share that out again if you wish, and looking to put that, now we've got that telephone number up onto our signage that Stephen has kindly said we can put into the notice boards on the scrubs.
Thank you. And again, just to reiterate, that's not for emergencies.
Yes, yeah, 100% not for emergencies. if there's a need for an emergency response, so someone with blue lights to come now, or a threat to life or a danger to life, that needs to be a 999 call for the police, and we are investigatory officers. We work closely with the police, so if it is a drug matter, for example, we do a lot of the footwork. So we're out on patrol, we can capture body worn footage, we can take images. Again, we can supply that information to the police that you want to go to this area at this time on this date, because that's when we've most frequently found them. And again, we can task our CCTV team to be aware of people. I know there's not much CCTV actually at the scrubs, but we can, if we can get any information on the route they take, again, it's all just builds into the bigger picture of then we need the police support to come and have the powers to search and stop.
Thank you. Stephen. You're muted. You're still
Stephen,
muted.
you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I thought I'd unmuted.
No problem.
Last time we met, I think I expressed the view that the LET team were a work in progress. I think there has been considerable progress in that work in progress, and I'm sure it's going to continue that way. So I'd like to thank them also, and we're working with them and publicising their number and email address to all our membership in all the ways we can. Some time ago, I asked other Stephen Hollingworth whether there was any chance of the licenses for those people that bother to take them out or abide by them, and don't pretend they don't know they need them, that there should not be walking in large groups of walkers with very large numbers of dogs, so that it might be restricted to perhaps 2 walkers with 8 dogs as a maximum. And you were going to talk to the licensing people about that, Steve. I wondered if there was any progress on that front.
To my understanding, the license doesn't dictate that they can't walk in a large group. My understanding, the license is as long as the license holder is only walking 4 dogs at the time, that is permitted. As far as I'm aware,
a change to the license to introduce that restriction, because we are aware that there isn't one at the moment.
Yeah, that would have to be a question for Stephen, because it's his team that set that license.
Stephen.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Stephen. Yes, we have discussed that, and didn't really come to a conclusion. But if it is, you know, and I'm not sure how prevalent it is. If you're telling me that there are many groups of large, large groups of dogs with although there might be abiding 4 per dog, there might be 4 people and 12 dogs. And if it remains an issue, then yes, we can look at that and change the license.
I have certainly seen that. I've seen groups of 3, more 3 than 4. But even 2 people with 8 dogs is a lot of dogs in one go. And when they are off lead, which they often seem to be, that is a lot of dogs running around and to try and control between 2 people. So I don't know what we can do there, but
no, okay, Chair. We'll have a look at that, and I'll come back with a proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. But yes, that is something that I have received a lot of emails about, of trying to get a handle on a lot of dogs going around in a group or in a bit of a pack. So it would be good for us to try and get a bit of a handle on that this year.
Yeah.
Thank you. To that end, I'm sorry, I'm going to interject this here because I realise that it's not anywhere else on the agenda. There has been a request for, Stephen, is it a dog show?
Dog show. So I know there was a gentleman called Tony who used to work in the Parks Police, and he regularly ran a dog show as part of his.
Sorry, Neil. This was for Stephen from the Friends. I think it's a Friends dog show.
There is a request to consider a dog show organised by the Friends in conjunction with the Mayhew Dogs Home. If there were a profit, it will be shared between those 2 charities. It will be free to attend, and there'll be a token charge for people entering their dogs in the many classes we would hope to have. And the purpose is not just for people to have fun showing their dogs and competing, but to try and bring dog users and other dog walkers and other users together to educate dog walkers, both individual and professional, in all the things they should be doing. And one of our trustees, Ben Novak, is very keen to organize this and lead on it. And my request really would be to allow officers to engage with him in that in a discussion of it and see whether it might be possible to move that forward. He's very ambitiously suggesting a date in July this year. And I suppose if everything was positive, that would need Chair's approval before we met in committee next time. So I think all we can do is ask whether this discussion can take place.
Thank you. As you know, I am quite sceptical about the idea of a dog show in a year when we're trying to crack down on people having lots of dogs on the scrubs. Just the kind of optics of that might be a little bit confusing for people. That said, I am willing to consider the idea if the committee is sort of happy to delegate that to me and officers to talk about with Ben. And I have talked about it briefly with Ben. Not completely opposed, but a little bit sceptical about how we manage that against our new hardened stance on professional dog walkers walking around in a big pack. Miriam.
Yes, I mean, just to add to what Stephen said, the Mayhew are, I think, very keen to be involved and very keen to do a sort of, I guess, a sort of educational sort of outreach about, let's call it dog management around it. And we also thought, I mean, obviously this, and we haven't had any discussions yet, it could also be useful to get the police dog unit along again for sort of outreach on dog management. And I would just also lastly say I'm very keen because I'm convinced that my dog will win all the prizes.
Fair enough, fair enough. Yes, if committee are happy to delegate that, let's have a conversation with a bit more information. But as I say, I will need to be convinced about how we balance that with dog walking. Fine, thank you. Sorry, is that all right with the committee to delegate that? Helen? Perfect.
Sorry, struggling for the mute button, all good.
Yeah, perfect, thank you. Right, sorry, Stephen, Neil, for that segue there. I had just remembered that and thought it was the perfect moment to bring it up. Just on that, looking at these stats, Neil, so we're approaching dog walkers once every 3 days, it looks like, to talk to them about having too many dogs, and that is why I'm particularly keen to make sure we do try and get a handle on it, because it feels like a lot of let time is then being utilised managing dog walkers where it could be going to something perhaps slightly more pressing.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from, and as I said to you, the number there is 28, but from reports from the guys when they're up on the scrubs, there's probably been easy another 10, 15 that we've wanting to speak to. They see us come in and they're off in the other direction type thing, and unless the officers were going to get them football boots to run across the scrubs, we're just not going to catch you, unfortunately.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Which is why we need to, which is why I want to get the blitz going, so we've got lots of bodies in cutting, actually walking, and they're going to be harder to get away from us, so to speak.
Yeah, thank you. Fine, and thank you also for your response on Braybrook Street, because that looks like almost 2 patrols a day that you've been doing on Braybrook.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's been a priority tasking for the North team and for the Knights team. So again, we've been trying to get there circa the times they've been saying, so anywhere between 6 and 8 p.m. And then also the night team, again, trying to be targeted about midnight was the information we had through. So they've been following up on that.
Thank you, and I'm sure residents will have thoughts on that, so if they contact you directly.
And we have spoken to the complainant several times as well, so just to keep her updated as well. So she seems happy to see us. I'm sure
everyone's very happy to see. I've had very positive things from residents about the LET team, so well done and thank you.
Good, thank you very much.
Brilliant. Is there anything else on this report?
Nothing else I've got to add, but obviously if any questions come in from anyone here, more than happy to take.
Thank you. Brilliant. I think that's it. Thank you so much, Neil, and please do extend our thanks to the team as well.
Yeah, I will do. I will pass that back. Thank you very much for your time and inviting us on.
Of course. Thank you for coming.
No worries.
Lovely. Thank you. Steve, I've lost my agenda, but on to the next
Yes,
slide.
and apologies, I've just noticed there's a rogue item on the agenda, which was a hangover from December. The next substantive item on the agenda is the financial forecast, which Carmen will take us through. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you. Hi, Carmen. Thank you for waiting.
Hi. Yes, so I'll briefly summarise, and then if we've got any questions, Chair. And then, so the forecast for this financial year to March is currently 158,104 better than the budget. That's 44,428, but that's excluding the backdated Pony Centre income. That will be an adjustment at year end. So it will be better than that even. So parking income, it was more or less on equal standing up until October, but it's dropped now, and it's 5% below the 1920 comparable, but it is still a lot better than the COVID period. So the forecast reflects that, and so those are the main changes there. So there's not much variance, other variance to the budgets than last reported. So the change from last report is only £12,000, and that is mainly due to other expenditure being less than it was. Other expenditure being lower because certain things have been delayed until next year. So that is just to be noted because that's the financial forecast. I have also on the agenda the actual budget for 22-23, and that does include some of the items of expenditure that were not included in this year, even though in 21-22, even though they were agreed. So the budget is for the proposed budget, so I'm asking you to agree, that is for a net income of 250,697, and that takes into account the main change there is the new grounds maintenance contract, and income on the parking. What we're suggesting there, it should be back at least 1920 levels, given the pending introduction of weekend parking. We mentioned earlier about the car park license. The trend is that it is increased. There is a method of inflation. It's not quite CPI, but it's based on that, and I can share that if individuals want more detail of that. But you can see it's 381,000 compared to 360, so that has been applied and factored in. And then what we've got is the items, all the items that Steve has mentioned on the earlier sections in this report, apart from the hedge laying, because we have no figures for that. But I've detailed here, say for example, the traffic management system is included in here, and the increase, obviously it's 70,000 rather than 63, and the reduced ground maintenance, the KAA license, so, and also the trust management role. So I'm assuming that will be in place from April. So if it's not in place from April, then there will be a slight savings until that role is filled. So what the budget does, it proposes at the moment, excluding the backdated pony centre income, that the trust's funds will increase to 6.2 million from 5.98 million at the end of this financial year. So I'm not sure if anyone's got any questions, but that was very much a summary. But if anyone's got particular questions on any items, I'm happy to take those.
Thank you, Carmen.
Chair.
And just to stress, that's not that we've got £6.5 million in the bank. That's not.
No, no. That's 5 million of that is assets.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
In case anybody want a bit of a golden egg there. Thank you very much for sharing this report. That was very thorough. Miriam.
Yes, just one quick question on the grounds maintenance costs. So there's the base cost of 316,000, which is the cost of the contract plus the sort of proportioned amount of the parks team. Then there's an additional cost of, I think, well, it's 100,000, which is non-routine maintenance and the depot wall rebuild. Yes, the non-routine maintenance, does that from the separate tree contract?
Steve, do you know the answer to this?
This meeting is being recorded.
Thanks very much. Welcome back, everyone, after that brief interlude. Right, Carmen. I think the remaining thing to do, if there aren't any other questions, is for the committee to approve the budget. Is the budget approved?
Approved.
Good. Approved from my end as well. Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Chair.
That nearly brings us to the end of this evening's meeting. I'm going to hand over to Stephen and Miriam.
I have nothing to add to the meeting. Thank you.
Fair enough.
Friends will continue to work with officers and yourself to make the Scrubs as good a place as we can. It's horribly wet at the moment.
It is. Lovely. Thank you very much. Well, thank you everyone for being here this evening, and thank you for watching online. Thanks so much to all of the officers for all of their time in prepping all of their statements and reports for this evening. And that brings the meeting to a close. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you all. Goodbye.
Bye.